Hello and welcome to Ask Your Academic. Today's session will cover the MSc Sport and Exercise Science in Medicine, and we're joined by some of our programme team to answer any questions that you have about the programme. So please do use the chat box and we'll do our best to answer all of those questions. And we've also got some questions that were submitted beforehand that we'll run through. We are recording this session, so please don't panic if you miss anything. We will share it shortly afterwards for you to watch back in your own time. So Stuart, would you like to kick us off with introductions, please?
Yes, so I'm Stuart Gay. I'm the current director of the MSc in Sport and Exercise Science and Medicine. Although saying that, probably by the time you guys come next year to do it, hopefully Mike will be the director of the program. So I'm kind of handing that over. So yeah, so I currently direct the program and I teach on a few modules, but I run the sports nutrition module, which is called Nutritional Aids for Exercise Performance. Mike, you want to?
Yeah, sure. So, as Stuart mentioned there, I'm looking to take over as a program director in the summer this year. So, by the time you join the program, if you join the program, I'll be program director. But currently, I'm a lecturer in sports science at the University of Glasgow, and my area of expertise or interest, maybe more appropriate, is in applied sports science. I moved into academia from working in full-time professional sports. So anything about sort of performance sport, applied sports science is my bag, and that reflects the areas that I deliver on in the football.
Fab, thank you. And could you give us an overview of the MSc?
Yes, so there's a couple of courses that you have to do as part of the MSc. One is Research Methods and Stats, which is a course that's common across all our MSc programs here at University of Glasgow within our school, and that covers, as it kind of says in the tin, statistics and research methods. So study design, what's the most robust, how do you do a power calculation, sample size calculation, how many arms, randomized controlled trial, cluster design, all that kind of stuff, and then the statistics of how you would analyze that. So stuff I know students absolutely love. That's why students sign up for the program all the time. So that's a non-optional course. The other course you have to do is your project, and I'll come to that in a little bit. Then, so that research method and stats course comes in semester one. You've then got two choices from four courses: working with elite athletes, which Mike runs; nutritional aids, which I mentioned, it's basically sports nutrition; physical activity, health, and biological mechanisms, which is which is all about, we know physical activity is good for you, but how is it good for you? What does it do to the body to make it good for you? And then exercise prescription, which is about, okay, we know exercise is good for you, but what do we give different populations advice on for exercise? So somebody with hypertension, somebody with Parkinson's, somebody who's pregnant, how do we tailor exercise for them? Then in semester two, we've got 5 courses, and you choose 3 of those courses. Again, one of Mike's courses is Factors Influencing Performance. We've then got 2 sports injuries. We've got one for doctors and physios, which is more clinical. So it's more about assessing joints and determining what's going wrong, what's going on there, and then what we do with that. And then we've got a prevention and rehab for non-doctors or physios. And it's worth saying as well that it is doctors and physios. You have to be able to be registered as a doctor or physio in the UK to do the doctors and physios course, because there's often a lot of confusion with that. And the non-clinical one is more about the role of a sports scientist in that. Okay, so how do we prevent injuries in the first place? Once the injury is identified by the clinician, what would we do to help get somebody back on the pitch, basically? So you've got 2 sports injuries you can pick from. There's a physical activity and health behaviour change, which is all about how do we get people moving, how do we get people doing activity, and then another more applied course, technology and analytics in sport and exercise science. So that's about how GPS and other monitoring tools are used to help sports teams optimize performance. Again, that's one Mike's involved in. So we've almost got 3 streams in the program. We've got kind of physical activity and health stream, we've got a sports performance stream, and we've got a slightly more clinical stream within the course. They're not formal streams, and you don't have to pick. You can pick across all 3, but we've kind of designed it that way to try and cover the bases of all the people that are interested in the program. And then semester 3, we've got the project. which I think there's some other questions about the project. So I'll wait on those questions before I elaborate on the project.
Perfect.
Anything you wanted to add in your courses, Mike? Are you happy with that?
No, I think that's a good summary.
Perfect. What kind of background do the students in the programme typically have? Is it quite mixed?
Yes, there is no typical background is the answer to that. We'll have medical doctors joining, we'll have physiotherapists joining, we'll have physical therapists joining, we'll also have sports scientists joining. So it is very much a mixed bag, and that's the kind of main areas, but we do also get people who have got an interest, they've maybe done a biology degree or they've done physiology, but they've got an interest in sports science and they've done some strength and conditioning qualifications. So we've got people that come in slightly more tangentially as well to the program. So it's a really mixed background, which the program is very mixed for that reason as well. But I think it's good as well for students because you get to interact with people who are not from your discipline, so you can learn a lot from each other as well as from us. So I think it's a real strength of the program.
Yeah, it shows different aspects of it as well, doesn't it? Whereabouts are the classes typically held, or is it main campus mostly?
Mostly on the main campus. So yeah, primarily on the main campus. The clinical courses, so the sports injuries courses, they take place at Hampden because they run the courses for us. So we work with the Sports Medicine Centre at Hampden. For those of you not from the UK or Scotland, that's where the Scotland football team play their games. So that's the National Stadium. So it's a great place to go to. For me, it's not a big pain, but sometimes students think it's a wee bit of a pain to get to. It's about half an hour away from the main campus. It's a bus away or a train and a walk. Or when I cycle my bike, it's 25 minutes. It's not overly hard, but they've got the specialised facilities and the people, so you're getting access to people, sport doctors that work with the national football team, national rugby team, for example. So you're getting all the top people in there, but most of them are on campus. Occasionally, the research methods and stats, because it's a big course. Sometimes we've got lecture facilities at the Royal Infirmary, which is in the city centre, and sometimes they take place there. But most of it's on campus. Oh,
Yep.
Mike's his dad.
Some of the practical classes I also run at a Gas Cube, which is the university sport facility, but it's not far from the campus either. And we would do sort of on pitch or in the field practical stuff up there, but look forward to get to.
Hmm.
Perfect. We'll not get into getting lost.
No.
We've also been asked, how is the programme structured, i.e. days on campus, lectures, online learning and working from home? And can it fit around some part-time work?
So it very much depends on your modules, what you pick, but you're probably on campus 3/4 days of the week and not necessarily full time in class. So you can definitely fit part-time work around that. And I think, yeah, we appreciate that people have to work. Cost of living is pretty high, accommodation's expensive, food's expensive. So we get people working. Most people on the course fit that in, no problem. If there is ever any problems, we work with people to try and sort them out. So yes, it's possible, depending on your course choices. I couldn't tell you what days it is just now because it depends on your choices. But generally, I'd say on average 3 days a week you're on campus. But obviously, we're hoping you're working a lot at home. Out with that, there's a lot of self-directed learning out with that as well.
Just on that, how much kind of time are students kind of expected to do out with class time? Because it's not Monday to Friday, 9 till 5 that they're studying in a class.
No, it's definitely not. It's not Monday to Friday. So each course you pick, you'll probably have 3 hours contact time with the academic. We're probably expecting about you to make that up to 10 hours overall in the course. I mean, there's official numbers, but I'd say that's a good ballpark that if you add another 7 onto that to round it up to 10, so you're probably expecting you to spend 10, 12 hours on each course throughout the week. But that can be when you please, and we'll give you a lot of material online that you can use, which is good. So it means if you have to work at certain times, you can pick things up in the evening time or whatever works for you and your commitments.
Perfect. We've had a question through the Q&A and it's can we do this course online?
Well, yes, but not. This webinar is for the on-campus version of the course. There's not a completely different. The same course does run online, but it's a completely different application. You need to apply for the online rather than the on-campus course. So yes, we have an online version of the course that's fully online.
Perfect. And if you have applied for the on-campus version, but you've actually meant to apply for the online version, if you drop us an email, we can speak to admissions to get that sorted for you. We've also had a question about, is there any practical work?
Yes, there is practical work. So we don't have a course that's purely practical. In previous iterations, we used to have a course that was completely practical, but we found that it then didn't link up with the academic content, so it didn't really work. So now each course generally has a few practical sessions in them. So Mike mentioned he takes students up to gas cube. My nutrition course, we do this year we were looking at ketone body supplementation and exercise performance in the lab. We'll do gas sampling, these kind of things. Gemma in the physical activity courses does physical activity measurement and monitoring. Obviously the clinical stuff, you're getting a bit of hands-on practice in there. So all courses have some element of practical built into the course, yeah. And that might be lab-based practical, it might be out in the field practical, it might be in the clinic practical. It can take lots of different forms.
I do. And then on the research project, can you tell us a bit more about that? So how students go about choosing a topic, a supervisor, when all of that kind of happens?
Yeah. So we'll have a session quite early on, I think it was October this year, where all the academics will come and give you a kind of overview of the topics that they could supervise. We'll get a list together, send it out to students, and in December, the students will choose. They don't choose a project per se. There'll be example projects supervisors will give, but they choose a supervisor, basically somebody who can supervise projects they're interested in. We'll get them to rank supervisors. We'll then assign in January. We've just finished the assignment there, so it was possibly early February, January, February. We'll assign a supervisor and then you'll work with your supervisor to develop your project. Sometimes a supervisor might have a set project ready. Sometimes it might be something you work with your supervisor to develop. They then do the projects from May to August and submit a paper and do a presentation as the assessment. And project's quite a broad word. It can mean lots of things in this case. It can be a traditional lab-based project. It can be an internship where you go and work with a club and you collect some data as part of that. It can be outreach activities. So we've had students do before debates about drugs in sport, students creating infographics and material on exercise during pregnancy. Lots of different things can be done there, and there's normally a bit of an evaluation of it that you write up. It can be a systematic review, meta-analysis, or it can be analysis of existing data. So it can take lots and lots of forms, and we've got pretty good links with clubs and sporting organisations that a lot of the work, if students want to, can link in with those organisations.
Oh, that sounds very nice, that if you've got an interest, you can kind of then tailor it to
Yeah, you
suit
can
yourself.
tailor it. Yeah, and the
And
internship side of things is definitely it's a big strength of Glasgow. It's an opportunity you don't always get places.
yeah, and it's something we're getting asked more and more. In terms of the optional courses, how soon do students choose them? Do they have to kind of start in September knowing what courses they want to pick?
So yes, the first two courses, because they run in the first semester that you've got to pick, you obviously have to pick them straight away. We generally do get students to pick their second semester courses at the same time, but there's obviously room for changing them as time goes on because they've not started yet. But we get people to make their choices in September. It helps us with rough ideas of numbers for each courses and stuff like that, boring things. But and it gives you a bit of an idea of what your timetable will be like for the next semester as well. But there is a bit of option to change once you have made the choices.
We've kind of covered this, but just so it's clear, are there opportunities to meet industry and network?
Yes. Do you know, Mike, do you want to answer that? Because you probably do actually do more of that.
Yeah. So to give you some working examples of industry relationships that I have and currently have students working in, got quite a few of my project students are working alongside partners, either professional clubs or government bodies, like Stuart mentioned. So we generally make these up as projects. So to give you some examples, most of mine are in football. But last year, I had a student at Glasgow Warriors rugby. I had a student at Caledonia Gladiators in basketball. I had a student at two students at Scottish Football Association, two at Celtic, one at Kilmarnock, one at St Mirren. So a sort of broad range of industry parts, and I appreciate mostly in the football. But this year I've got 7 projects running at Borussia Dortmund Football Club. They're not in person, of course, but they're sort of working with the club online and working with their practitioners remotely to analyse data that's collected within their academy. So that's something that certainly every supervisor is different, but those kind of projects are available depending on who puts them up. So yeah, there's quite a broad range of things you can get involved in and a lot of contacts that you can make when say doing the project within industry department.
You do. And then in terms of assessments, what kind of assessments should students expect?
Lots of different ones. We don't do, there's a little exam for statistics, a little small exam that's it's not worth a big percentage of your overall grade. Other than that, we don't do exams because we don't think it's the best way to assess you guys. We're not teaching you to go out and work in and doing exams. That's not really what we do. So there's a whole variety of assessments. It can be, there are some that are more traditional essay-based stuff. For example, in my nutrition course, I get students to come up with a nutritional strategy for a sport, do a bit of a needs analysis on that sport, describe the nutritional strategy, critically look at the evidence, and come up with a kind of summary recommendation. And that's probably a good example actually of another aspect. All our assessments, you can generally tailor a little bit to your interest. So I keep it open. If you're interested in endurance, you can look at nutrition for endurance. If you're interested in strength or football or intermittent activities, you can look at it there. You might write a paper. So the lab stuff I do, you write up a scientific paper. You might do a presentation. You might do a poster. You might do an infographic. You do an OSCE for some of the clinical stuff. I'm thinking that's all the types. Have I missed any, Mike?
No, I was only just going to sort of add to what you were saying, that I think what we're moving towards is quite often in the university called authentic assessment. So like Stuart said, it's not, you're not doing things that you wouldn't be asked to do when you go out and work in the field. So to give you an example of that, in one of my applied courses, the students are given a piece of sports technology, a piece of wearable technology, and asked to critique it for a non-academic audience. So they have to present back to like a board or coaches or someone who doesn't necessarily know the science about what it can be used for and whether it's worth investing in. And exactly as you said, the reason we do assessments like that is because that's very realistic. You could be asked to do something like that when you move into employment. And one of the points I always make to the students is that just because it's a piece of work that you create for an assessment university doesn't mean you can't use it elsewhere. It's still your work. So when you're trying to gain employment in the field, you can use examples like that as here's something I've already done. I've critiqued this piece of technology, or I've spoken about a certain way of working. You can approach clubs, governing bodies, and say, there's some things that I've already worked on, and it helps you almost generate a little portfolio of practice that you can take into employment with you.
And
You know,
speaking, oh, sorry.
I was going to, I remembered some other examples soon with the kind of physical activity, biological mechanisms. One, you write a draft grant application. For the research methods, you do like a study design type. You design a study and present that. And again, from a research side, that's the kind of stuff you'll expect. If you go down the more research career, that's the stuff you'd be expecting to do there.
Nice and varied. And speaking of employment, what kind of jobs do graduates go on to do?
Yeah, so it's again, as with the people coming in, with very varied backgrounds, the things people do afterwards are very varied. So PhD is reasonably common. A lot of students will go on and do a PhD afterwards. They're coming in from a research angle. Quite a few will go and then work in applied sports science. So whether that's within a football club, rugby team, Scottish hockey, wherever. People come in with a more clinical background often leave, and then their clinical practice switches to be more sports specific. So they might have come in with a physiotherapy background and they're doing general MSK physio. They'll then, with the experience they gain, they'll then be able to go and work more within a sporting environment. We've got physios, for example, working with Glasgow Warriors just now. So that's probably the main areas, but again, it's varied within there. The other one, probably less common, but a lot of people still do is the more physical activity side of it. And I think I probably forget about that more when I talk because there's probably less people going through that, but we've got people that then go in and work more in local councils and physical activity promotion or within the NHS as well. So that's the kind of main areas people go, but even within those areas, there's a lot of variation within there. And I think, again, that's probably one of the strengths of the course is you can use it to tailor your learning for what you want to do later. It leaves lots of options open for you after the MSc.
Yeah, and I suppose all those different skills you learn, they're all transferable, aren't they, to different
Definitely.
areas? And in terms of preparing, is there anything students can do to set themselves up for a good start in September?
Uh, Very much again, it depends on your background. I'd say generally no. My kind of thinking is you're probably coming from you've just finished a degree or you've done something pretty busy and have a bit of a break before you start, to be honest. If you want to do a bit of reading, if you've not got the sports science background, get a general sports science textbook, exercise physiology textbook. You'll get some online. Have a bit of a look at that, but don't do anything. Don't do anything crazy. There's nothing we're expecting you to come having anything prepared for it. Come refreshed and ready to learn.
And maybe just get here early so that you're set up, everything
Yeah,
personal is, your admin stuff's all ready to go.
yeah.
Um,
Particularly if you're coming from abroad, come and get ready. Get used to the Glasgow weather and the Glasgow way of life. Definitely,
and the accent.
and the accent. Hopefully, you're all understanding me.
Got subtitles, don't
I
worry.
was going to say, is there subtitles? That's good.
Um, and I suppose if anybody's thinking, oh, where will I go and study sports and exercise science and medicine, in case this hasn't made their mind up, why Glasgow?
Why Glasgow? For us, obviously, look at us here. No, I'd say compared to, I'm very honest about these things, and if I think when I talk to people, if I think Glasgow's not right for them, I'll tell them it's not right for them. If you knew exactly what you wanted to do, and it was really niche, and you was an MSc specific in that, then I would go for that. If you want to get broad, varied education that you can tailor to yourself that opens up lots of doors, I'd say that's probably the main benefit of Glasgow. And I think the other thing I'd say is our links with industry and internships is a big thing. If you want to work in industry, in this case that would be kind of applied sports science generally, Glasgow is very good at getting people in the door there. It's as with all these jobs, it's you can't get the job unless you've got experience. You can't get experience unless you get the job type thing. We help you get that experience to get you closer to getting that job.
Yeah, and I think we've done these webinars for the past few years, and every time we speak, there's always different companies that are mentioned that you're
Yeah.
working with. I think there was one time the Scottish Ballet, like it is very
There were
diverse, isn't it?
learning students in Scottish Ballet looking at load monitoring and injury in Scottish Ballet.
Sorry, Michael, were you going to add something there before I?
I was really going to make a very general point that's probably only relevant to people that haven't been to Glasgow or been to Scotland. It's an absolutely fantastic city. It's a brilliant place to be. And I'm not from there specifically, but spent a lot of time looking at it. What I can honestly say, sometimes when I arrive on the campus, I still look at it and think, this place is incredible. It's beautiful. So yeah, I wouldn't hesitate to recommend the city for anyone who wants to experience something new or move to the country. It's a very welcoming place. You'll not be too long before you get a best friend that you met about 2 minutes ago. So it could be on a bus, it could be
Yeah.
anywhere, but it's a very, very welcoming place to be, especially if you're moving from there.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That is us. We've covered all our questions, and hopefully we've sold the University of Glasgow to you if you have in two minds of where to go. Please don't panic if you think of any other questions and you've not had the chance to ask them. We do have an email address on the programme webpage, so please get in touch if you've got anything that you want to ask. So thanks to our panel for taking time out of your day. I know how busy you are, and hopefully everybody watching, hopefully we see you come September time. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks all. Bye bye.